Hey guys, Sniz here, and in this video we're going to talk about a very comfortable and pretty zoomy mapper, the Winter Orb Occultist. A while ago on stream, which you should follow by the way, we talked about the current state of Explode in PoE and how necessary Explode is to get in your fast mapping character. Now, eventually the discussion moved on to Herald of Ice, and I was quite surprised to see how many people felt that Herald of Ice wasn't good enough to be used as your main source of clear in a mapping build. So with this character, I've set out to prove just how good Herald of Ice can still be as the main source of clear in your build. Yes, that means in the footage you're currently seeing, there's no Explode chest, no Profane Bloom, no Asenath gloves. The clear is 100% Herald of Ice shatters. Sadly, base Herald of Ice just won't be enough and it needs a little bit of love. So we juice up our Herald of Ice by stacking a ton of flat added generic cold damage from items and supports, scaling massive amounts of AoE, and getting a ton of critical strike chance and multiplier. And as you can see, it works really well. Now, since we're an Occultist, we get an additional curse for free, and thanks to our chest piece, we also get an additional curse there, so we can run up to 3 curses, and getting Frostbite on hit and Elemental Weakness on hit helps Herald of Ice clear even better. For the main skill of the build, I've decided to go with a 6-link Winter Orb, as Winter Orb pretty much benefits from all the same scaling. The curses, the flat added cold damage, the AoE, the crit, everything, and Winter Orb has always just been a very comfortable skill to map with. Now, Winter Orb has never excelled at killing bosses. At some point, it was really hard to even take on raid tier map bosses with Winter Orb, but thanks to the addition of Hydrosphere and Sniper's Mark, Winter Orb now has pretty decent single target. Now, don't get me wrong, the build definitely doesn't excel at killing bosses. It's still designed to be a fun mapper, but as you can see, it does have some respectable single target damage. Now, unfortunately, yes, this is your standard 5k EHP power charge stacking build where your only defensive layer is not getting hit. I know a lot of you will dislike that playstyle, and I can fully understand that. If you don't like dying once every few maps, unfortunately, I don't think this will be the build for you. This video won't follow my usual format for making guides, and that'll be for 2 main reasons. Reason 1, this build requires a few items with synthesized implicits that might be really hard to get, and I don't think it's a good idea to make a guide telling people to use items that might be near impossible to acquire. And then secondly, making extremely detailed hour-long guides where we go into the intricate mechanics of every single skill we use, just for the whole guide to get invalidated by GGG's balance changes every second league, isn't something that I feel is worth doing anymore. So from now on, expect more guides in this format in the future, which hopefully should mean that I'll be able to release more guides more frequently. But without any further ado, let's get into the guide. So this is the level 95 Occultist that I've been playing. Let's take a look at the passive tree. So first we start off and we go through the left side of the Witch Start, we grab some life over here, and then we grab a Glorious Vanity with the Doriani mod to get Corrupted Soul. Now this gives us a ton of extra energy shield, and is quite popular for builds with not a lot of life. Now unfortunately all these nodes kind of get transformed, so depending on how much currency you want to invest in this jewel, you could get double damage over here, you could get some nice mods up here. Mine really don't give me much. As you can see, nothing big, so this doesn't really do much for me, but you could go hard here and invest a lot of money to get some good mods over here. Then we go up here and we grab the Dexterity node. Now this really depends on your build, but I do assume you're gonna have problems with Dex. Unfortunately, we're playing a cold skill and we're in the top left corner of the passive tree. We don't really have too many options for Dex here, and typically cold skills all have big Dex requirements, so I have a feeling you're gonna need to grab Dex at least here and maybe here as well. I need all these nodes. And then we go up here. Since this is a power charge stacking build, we do have Disciple of the Forbidden. And then we also have the Charge Mastery that gives us increased damage per Endurance, Power, or Frenzy. Now, another good option here is to take the Cannot Be Shocked while at max power charges. You're pretty much always going to be max power charge. And then we grab power charges over here. Then we have a large radius Thread of Hope. As you can see, mine's minus 16, so you might want to get a minus 10 if you can afford it. Now, this gives us some mana regen, cast speed, area of effect, and area damage, and then most importantly, Heart of Ice for cold damage and cold pain. This is quite flexible. You could not go this route and then instead just use another rare jewel in this socket, saving up 3 points if you want to. but I feel like this is definitely worth the points and worth the reduced elemental resistances from the jewel. Then getting life on this tree is kind of hard, so we're getting life over here, and then we take the life mastery for 10% maximum life and the reduced life recovery rate. Then if we go to this part of the tree, we'll go over clusters later. We're grabbing Arcane Potency for spell critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier. And then on the mastery, we also get 25 crit multi against unique enemies. We pick up these life and energy shield hybrid nodes. These are very, very nice. If you do have a few spare points, if you gain some more levels or you fix your stats, definitely put them here. This is very, very nice for hybrid energy shield life builds. Then we grab some mana reservation efficiency over here, and on the mastery we get more mana reservation efficiency of skills. Be sure you get the mana reservation efficiency and not the life reservation efficiency. We get the next power charge over here, and we pick up the jewel socket. Then we go over to this side for divine judgment. Now the elemental mastery, this is very, very flexible. I've decided to take energy shield leech or elemental damage leeched as ES. This is really the only way that we recover ES apart from just normal base ES recovery, or the mechanic where your ES recovers if you haven't taken damage for a while. You could get elemental damage, or you could get the elemental resistances if you needed those. You could also get the additional exposure if you want to get the additional minus, or just the max minus 18 from exposure from the mastery. It really depends on what you want, but I went with the leech. Then we grab some more life over here, and then we take our second life mastery, the regen while moving. We don't really have any other source of life regen, so this depends on whether you care about having life regen. Otherwise, you could just use your flask, but typically in a fight like Cyrus, in between phases, if you walk over dot and you don't have any regen, that can be kind of rough. So that's why I've taken this mastery. Once again, if you get another level, you could use another life mastery to get the plus 50 flat max life from the life mastery. That would give you some extra life as well. Then we path over here and get the increased maximum life and reduced cost. And we've already talked about the stats. And as you can see, we also have two large cluster jewel setups up here and down there. Now, these both large cluster jewels only have Blanketed Snow and Widespread Destruction. Now, the most important thing about these clusters is just that you have Blanketed Snow on one of your travel nodes, either here or here. The rest of the nodes don't matter at all. Typically, getting a 3 passive with Blanketed Snow as a travel node can be quite expensive. So as you can see, both my larges just have Blanketed Snow on the side and are only 2 passives. So it depends on your budget here. You could get the extra notable here, but this is just fine. Then we have 2 mediums in each large cluster setup. This is the crit mediums and this is the AoE mediums, or these are the AoE mediums. Let's go over the crit mediums first. These are 4 or 5 passive critical strike chance mediums, and both of them have quick getaway or pressure points. Quick getaway just gives us some movement speed and cast speed, and a ton of crit strike chance. And pressure points gives us 5% chance to deal double damage and crit chance, and we have those on both. So combined, we have about 10% chance to deal double damage and 10% movement speed and cast speed from these, apart from all of the crit chance, which is really, really nice. And then if we move up here to the area of effect mediums, on both of these we have Vast Power and Assert Dominance. Now, we're already stacking a lot of AoE since we're an Occultist, but since we only use Herald of Ice for our clear, you really can't get enough area of effect. The more area of effect you have, the better your clear feels. And these mediums give us a ton of area of effect. So Assert Dominance gives us 25% AoE if you've killed at least 5 enemies recently. This is permanently up while mapping. Pretty much always this is up, and we already have enough area of effect from the Ascendancy and other nodes on the tree that we can still get AoE shotguns from Winter Orb with Hydrosphere without this 25 extra AoE from both nodes. So this is just good for mapping. And then we use Vast Power, giving us area damage and AoE per power charge. I think we're running 10 power charges in this build, so that's 30% AoE. So it's pretty big. This node plus this node gives us 55% increased area of effect, and both these mediums give us 110% increased area of effect, which is really, really good, and that's how we get the amazing Herald of Ice Chain Shatters. Then for jewels, let's start off with the Watcher's Eye. So this is a flat critical strike chance while affected by Hatred Watcher's Eye. I recommend that this is the mod that you go for, but sometimes this might be a bit expensive to get, so a more budget option would be to go for the flat added call damage while affected by Hatred. And if you have more currency to throw at this, then you could go for the base critical strike chance while affected by Hatred and some other Zealotry mod. I do recommend you try and go for at least one of the Hatred mods, as it does really help out with the clear and single target. And then we have a ton of rare jewels. Now, since this is a spell critical strike build, really, these jewels are the min-maxing of the build. The more critical strike multiplier you can stack on these rare jewels, the more damage you're going to have. So I've at least told myself that I was going to aim for 2 critical strike multiplier mods on these jewels. I know this one has 3, but the fire critical strike multiplier doesn't affect us. And then some other beneficial stat. Now, like I said earlier, we struggle with resistances, so here we get 10 all res. On this one, we have double crit multi and 10 all res. Down here, again, double crit multi all res. And then on this one, we have double crit multi and stats. Now, these jewels really are here to fix what you need. So if you need some stats, you can fix it here. If you need res, you can fix it here. But the less you need to fix with these jewels, the more critical strike multiplier you can stack. And the more multiplier you have, the more damage you're going to deal. If you were to put in 4 triple or quad multi-jewels in all of these sockets, the damage would go up quite significantly. So next, let's talk about the Ascendancy. Now, as we said earlier, this build doesn't have any source of explode, so we 100% rely on Herald of Ice for clear. That's why we're not taking Profane Bloom. Feels weird seeing an Occultist not take this, but there you go. That's the reason. So we start off by taking Malediction for an additional curse, an increased effect of curses, and then also gaining Malediction, which makes the enemies take 10% increased damage and deal 10% reduced damage. Then we go for Void Beacon, giving nearby enemies minus 20 cold res and reduced life reservation or life regeneration, sorry. Then we go for Frigid Wake. This is very good since we get chill and freeze immunity, but the most important thing here is that we get the 15% more cold damage, which works both with Winter Orb and Herald of Ice for clear. And then we get the chill and freeze nearby enemies every few seconds. And then also nearby chilled enemies deal 10% reduced damage with hits. So we get 10% reduced damage taken from hits over here, and then the 10% reduced damage taken over here. So this build really doesn't have too many defensive layers, but hey, if you want to talk about some layer of defense, there you go. And then the main reason to play Occultist, Forbidden Power, sorry. This gives us 6% AoE per power charge, spell damage per power charge, and then +1 max power charges. Now, like I said, we're running 10 power charges, so this is 60% increased area of effect and 60% increased spell damage, which is really, really good for a power charge stacking build. Okay, now let's take a look at the gear. Now, since this is a power charge stacking build, we use 2 Void batteries. These are very, very basic. If you want to invest a little bit more, you could go for the AoE Enchanted Void batteries, or you could go for Corrupted Void batteries with Elemental Penetration. Then for our helmet, we use a Blizzard Crown with the +2 max stage Winter Orb enchant. This Blizzard Crown is just a basic power charge -9 cold res, so we just Awakener's Orb those 2 mods together, and then you really pray to get an open prefix to craft life, or maybe you hit some res. I don't know, this is really just close your eyes and slam the items together and hope that you don't get horrible trash, which you probably will because that's just crafting at the moment. And then for our chest piece, pretty much the same story, just a spell crit additional curse frenzy on hit chest piece with the crafted modifier, gain 10% of your maximum life as extra energy shield. This also helps us gain this nice little energy shield buffer. Then we also use a badge of the Brotherhood. Since we already have 10 power charges, with the chest giving us frenzy on hit, this gives us 10 frenzy charges, which is pretty big. And we also anoint infused. That saves us an absolute ton of travel points to get the last power charge on the tree. Then for our boots, these are extremely basic Onslaught Elusive Tailwind boots. These are very bad. As you can see, nothing elevated. I think I bought these off trade for 18x from someone. You don't have to get these boots. You can get just normal movement speed and resistance boots. These just make me go fast, and in any good mapper, I want to go fast. Then for our Stygian, like I've said a million times by now, resistances are kind of hard to find, so this just gives us a ton of res and some life. And then I also have an Abyssal Jewel giving me Dexterity, Life, and Phasing on Kill. Very flexible. Once again, use this to fix whatever you need to fix, but I do recommend you try and get the Phasing on Kill. It's a nice quality of life. And then we're on to the rares that really determine how expensive this build is going to be. The synthesized implicit rares. And that would be the Frostbite on hit gloves, the Elemental Weakness on hit ring, and then the cold damage per frenzy on hit ring as well. You also, apart from just buying the bases, you'll probably need to craft these yourself. And we craft all 3 of these using the Essence of Horror. As you can see on this Essence, socketed gems have plus 3.5 crit base chance on gloves. And then on rings, we get the cold damage per frenzy mod. Now for both of our rings, as you can see, we have this mod on both of our rings. I actually need to catalyst this ring with elemental damage to upgrade the tier. But since we're using 10 frenzies, this adds up to be quite a substantial bit of power that we get from these mods, all 3 of them. And the great part is that this affects our damage from Winter Orb, but it also applies to the shatters from Herald of Ice. So that's why we get these. And then for the glove, we get the base crit because we put Herald of Ice in here. Now these essences are quite expensive, and this step really determines how much you want to invest into these. As you can see, mine are pretty damn bad, but the rule I went by when I made these was to buy an essence and to spam the essence until I hit either a good life roll or a good resistance roll, and then I just crafted on whatever I didn't have. So as you can see right here, I hit the good life roll, and then I crafted on some cold res. Over here I hit a good res, and I crafted on some life, and over here I hit dexterity and some res, and then I just crafted on some int. Then for flasks, once again, these are very flexible. I have a Corrupted Blood immunity, instant life recovery life flask, like I always do, an enduring mana flask with curse removal. This flask really isn't as important, but I still like it. As you can see, we can almost sustain the mana cost while channeling Winter Orb, but it's not quite there just yet, and in longer boss fights that might become a problem, and over here you won't be able to flame dash. So that's why I have this flask. If you do find a way, or if you do feel like the mana recovery from this flask isn't necessary, you have an open slot. Then we have a diamond flask with critical strike chance. This could be a bottled faith if you can afford one. Then I have a quicksilver flask for some movement speed. I just have reduced shocked over here. And then I have a dying sun for additional projectiles, and more importantly, the increased area of effect. The flasks, once again, pretty flexible. You can really do here what you want to do. I think the dying sun is important for the AoE and additional projectiles, but the rest of the flasks are very flexible. So if we take a look at the skill gems that we use, here we have a Zealotry linked to a level 3 Enlighten, linked to a Hatred. These are the big auras that we use. And in our helmet, we have an Arcanist brand linked to a Bone Chill support, linked to a Sniper's Mark support. Be sure to get quality 20 Sniper's Mark, as that does boost your damage quite a bit. Linked to Creeping Frost support. The Bone Chill and the Creeping Frost makes enemies take more cold damage, so that's why we do this. It's an Arcanist brand, so right before you fight a boss, you just throw down your Arcanist brand, and the brand will debuff the enemy. Then in my other one, I have a self-cast portal for when I want to leave a map, and a Cost and Death portal, because like I've said, this build is very, very squishy. In our glove, we have a Herald of Ice. Remember, it's important that Herald of Ice be in your socketed base crit glove. It's important that you want to do this. But we also link Herald of Ice to Awakened Increased Area of Effect. This can be normal AoE if you want to. You just want to link it to Increased Area of Effect, and link to Added Cold Damage. Now, Added Cold Damage doesn't affect the bonus damage that you get from the Herald, but it does affect the Shatter. That's why we have Added Cold. If you really like this, you could go for an Awakened Added Cold right here, and you could go for a level 21 Herald of Ice, which would mean even better clear. And then I just have a level 20 Hydrosphere. Now, Winter Orb can target an enemy, but it can also target a Hydrosphere, as you see. So with the Hydro, we get exposure, but we also get shotgun on single target boss fights. So that's why we have Hydro over here. And then in our boots, we have a steel skin. I can take mine up to level 18. Depending on how much strength you have, you might be able to take yours up a little bit higher. I put it on left click and on Q. The reason I have it on Q as well is when you're channeling, you can't really use your left click to move around. And so that's why I have it on Q as well. But that's so unnecessary that you don't really have to do that. Then we have our Flame Dash. And then these two sockets in boots are very flexible. I use a cost when damage taken, summon Ice Golem. You can literally use here whatever you want. This is just the setup that I currently have. It's almost never up, so this is kind of a waste. Do here whatever you feel is necessary. And then for our main 6-link, we have our level 21 Winter Orb. There is an alternate quality of Winter Orb which gives projectile speed if that is something that you prioritize over cast speed. I like the feeling of more cast speed, and we have so much clear that I don't feel it's important to fire projectiles more frequently, but you have the option. We have that linked to a power charge on crit, linked to an inspiration support to deal with the mana cost, linked to an increased critical strike damage support, linked to GMP. This could be Awakened GMP, but don't prioritize getting Awakened GMP. Additional projectiles for this sort of setup isn't that important that you need to spend that much money for this. It won't be worth it. Just use a normal GMP unless you have an Awakened GMP laying around. Linked to a level 5 Awakened Added Call Damage. Once again, you can start off with the normal added call damage, but the level 5 Awakened version now gives you +1, which increases the level of Winter Orb by 1, which is really, really nice. And I would prioritize, or I would recommend you try and get a level 5 Awakened added call damage as soon as possible. Then lastly, let's talk about Pantheons. So I use the Soul of Lunaris. As you can see, these aren't upgraded because I am bad at the video game. You should definitely upgrade yours. The reason we use Soul of Lunaris instead of Soul of Brine King is because we already get Cannot Be Chilled and Frozen from our Ascendancy, so Brine King would be a waste, and Lunaris really is a good Pantheon to use as well, so definitely recommend you take this as your major god. Then for your minor gods, it's more flexible. I'm currently running the Soul of Abrath because I think any build with some ES, it's very nice when you have Unaffected by Burning Ground and less Ignite duration. But if you want to, you could also take the Soul of Shikari for reduced chaos damage taken and less poison duration. But like I said, these are flexible. Do with these what you want to. We don't rely on any of them really, so you can just change it up and use what you prefer. And then for bandits, I currently still use Alira since I'm struggling with resists, but especially if you don't plan on using the Thread of Hope up here, you could probably drop a Lero. And if your gear is better than mine, if you make better rings and gloves, you could drop a Lero for 2 additional skill points, maybe invest them into these hybrid nodes up here, maybe some extra life nodes down here, maybe you get the life mastery over here, or you can go for these nodes in the middle. And there you go. Now you know everything you need to know to play this Winter Orb Occultist. It's probably one of my all-time favorite mappers, I would say. I think this is the 3rd time that I've played this character, and I can already see myself playing it again in the future. So if you do decide to play it, I hope you really enjoy it. Big disclaimer once again, this is a squishy character, and it's not an amazing bosser. Please don't comment 3k life a megalol. I know. Thanks. If you want to see more videos like this, remember to subscribe, and if you want to hang out live while we figure these builds out over on Twitch, you can do so from my Twitch channel. But that's it from me. My name is Sniz, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Small PP brand? Dude, this used to be the brand. You guys realize this, right? If you were playing Storm brand, it's just because you were saving up for Penance brand. Penance brand used to be the thing, the talk of the town. Now,